Hi there. Well, I've been working on this a little bit every day, but sometimes only an hour at a time, so maybe make one wiring connection. So what I'm working on is this EIS, connecting all the wires to that. So that's what we're going to talk about in this video here. All right, here's my Trig radio unit. I take that back, Trig transponder. What I need to do is mount this, and I built a little tray for it right here. And this is just going to get riveted onto that, and then this will get mounted onto that like that. And let me show you where I'm going to put it. So I plan on putting the transponder underneath the passenger seat here. I got the transponder bracket riveted into place, and there the transponder is in place. Again, I'll put the antenna. It'll go through that hole there. You can see that hole down here. There you go. And that'll be, the antenna will be down there somewhere where I'm going to end up mounting that. Just need to get some RG400 cable. And yeah, some other wires will come out the side there as well. Then up the side of the fuselage and to the back of the panel. Just want to show kind of how I'm splicing my wires together. This is for the header tank ground. I have a ground bus down underneath here that I'll show you here in just a second. All of my grounds from the aft part of the fuselage, or at least most of them, will be ran on a little grounding bus with a thicker 10 gauge wire going from that to my main one in the front of the airplane. But to splice my wires, I'm just using these little spade connectors. These are, quote, aircraft grade spade connectors. But anyway, got these from Steinair, and just splicing into them like this, just so I can make them removable. All right, down here in the access hole of the Zenith Cruzer, just gonna show kind of what I'm doing. This is the aft ground bus, just near my header tank back here. And I don't normally like doubling up on wires, but I did in this situation. What I have here is my beacon ground and my beacon pattern ground, changing the pattern of the beacons, going to one lug there. The next lug is the header tank fuel sender, and along with that, I have it at my fuel pressure gauge grounded. It should be grounded okay to this assembly there, but in case it's not, I went ahead and put a ground to that for my fuel pressure sender. Third one over would be the autopilot for the roll and pitch axis. Next one will be the flat motor, along with the 10 gauge wire going to the front ground bus. The fuel pressure, positive, negatives. The negatives and positives, they'll get their own line going independently to the front of the airplane because they are critical in flight. I don't want this one ground bus to take both of them out. So these will be a direct wire. Well, I'm back out here wiring, and right now I'm hooking up. Here's the fuel flow. It's on the other side of that, those two nuts down there with this white wire sticking out. I got 3 wires sticking out of this guy, and this is how I'm joining most of my wires. I'm just using these little spade connectors. Here I'm just showing the little clips I'm going to use to end up mounting everything that's going underneath into this this tunnel here, including the fuel flow meter. Somehow I got on this little tangent on locating and marking my Pitot-static system. This is for the EIS. I'm gonna have a backup Pitot-static system on this in case this top unit fails. In case this one fails or this one fails, I'll have a little bit of a backup monitor in case the electrical part fails. The bottom one for the engine monitor here, I put S on here for the static port, and I'll have a connection onto that. And then the Pitot-static port is going inside that little tunnel there, along with the Pitot has a little port down in there. So you can use 1/8 inch to 3/6 inch tubing, just like kind of slides on there. The other ones, static port up top, Pitot port down below. Just how about these from Steinair as well? These guys are really nice. Just going to screw this into here, and you just screw that into there, tighten it up, and then it can accept this type of tubing right here. these just kind of, the tubing just kind of goes into this little area right here where the orange is, kind of snaps into place. If you want to release it, you just push down on that, and then it pops right out. So that makes it kind of nice. Again, I'll tee these two systems together. Well, I said I was going to start wiring. I've been telling people I've been wiring for the last 3 months now, but I think it's finally official. Now I'm going to officially start wiring. So much other collateral stuff I was doing. I think I actually have all my avionics now and the associated wiring out here at the airplane. So what I've done recently is I've mounted the FlySafe 2020 GPS serial combiner from Grand Rapids. That'll give me my, sorry about the trash truck. That'll give me the GPS ADS-B out compliancy. This GPS will satisfy that, and this GPS will be connected to my EIS display up here. And I also mounted the ADS-B receiver. This is ADS-B in through GRT. It's a relatively new device that they have, so I'm going to try it out. Over here we're going to have the antenna. I'm going to end up routing down underneath this seat right here. Just looks like a little small transponder antenna. And over here, this ADS-B in is going to be hardwired to the EIS screen as well for ADS-B traffic within this screen here. And it also has Wi-Fi capabilities, so I should be able to Wi-Fi this ADS-B in to my iPad as well. I've said this in the past, this little guy here, my engine monitoring, has a 4.8 volt excitation wire that's required of a few of its instruments. In fact, there's 6 different connections I need to make to that 4.8 volt wire. Grand Rapids mentioned something about pigtailing into that, or splicing into that wire throughout different parts of the wire. I decided to make a bus bar, or sort of a bus bar, I guess, for that wire. So I'm gonna have 4.8 volts going right here, and then that's going to energize this entire thing with 4.8 volts. Gas tank, gearbox temperature, fuel pressure sensor, and then the Holes amp meter goes right here. Everything except for the Holes amp meter is going to require a resistor on top of that. So what I plan on doing is wiring all my gearbox temperatures, everything else, fuel pressure gauges, right off the fuel pressure senders to this part right here. I'm going to put a wire coming off of this onto one of these, and in between this and here I'll put the associated resistor that it requires. So I'm gonna have to have 5 different resistors going onto this wire here. I think that's what makes Grand Rapids maybe slightly complicated, is this whole resistor thing and this 4.8 volt excitation wire. I don't think other instruments you have to do that. Maybe you do, but anyway, it's not a big deal once you figure it all out. At least I don't think it is. We'll see if it all works. Also, I added another ground bus. I don't think the one over there is going to be enough. I wish I had the forest of tabs. I think that would be probably the best thing to actually have for my grounding. But anyway, all my engine will be over there as far as the grounding goes. This will be just the other collateral stuff I have. Also, I'm going to just point over there. I got a fuse box over here for the top. This will be for most of my avionics. All engine related stuff will be on a breaker. Underneath this, I have a smaller 6-port fuse holder, or fuse box, I guess, and that'll be mainly for my lights. But that's all I'm going to use for that. And since I'm going to start wiring everything, I did go ahead and disconnect these guys from my ECU. I don't want to have a short come back in here in case one of my switches are turned on. And I had already pre-wired most of this stuff right here, all the switches right there, and they're just all hanging right now. So now it's officially time to start wiring. All right, got a little bit more done today. I don't remember if I mentioned this or not, but I ended up wiring up all my wires for my switch and all the fuel pump. The fuel pump wires, got those running, and everything like that. I got some more grounds on here, my battery grounds, so my contactors come alive. Anyway, master switch. That guy back there, I got my main wire coming to from my master onto this guy here. And then from there, it goes to my fuse box. I made sure I got electric going to that. I'm gonna turn my contactor on. And again, that'll be for my main avionics, except for my EIS, the engine information. I would like that to be on at startup. And I do have that wired to a breaker from this main engine bus. I did wire up the main engine bus. It's my main power going to the little copper or brass bar that's going to all my breakers. That's where this guy's going. And as you can see, there's a 30 amp fuse separating my main engine components from my avionics bus. This other wire, as you can see, it says lights bus. That's going to another fuse box, a lot smaller one. I think a 6, maybe a 6 position one, or there's like 6 slots on it, 3 on each side. So it's a little bit smaller, but I got that mounted. You can kind of see the bolts coming up through there on the underside of that. All right, well, I have all my wires labeled. This is the harness that came with the engine information monitoring, and just a reminder, that's that guy down there. I went ahead and put some heat to the heat shrink here. I went ahead and installed one other wire into this that wasn't pre-installed, and that's this violet colored wire. It comes with a red light with the pin already connected to it. It's just not actually installed there for people who aren't going to use it. I went ahead and labeled, not sure how well you can see that, I went ahead and labeled or numbered all the pin locations along with the associated wire there, and kind of what they are, and then the numbers associated with the pin numbers on here. All right, the first wire I'm going to play with here is the blue one, pin 25. It is the let's see here, 4.8 volt output excitation wire, and that one's, I'm gonna cut the end of this off so it's not so long, and energize that little bus area right there. Again, this is for giving a little bit of juice to some of my gearbox temperature, fuel pressure sender, 3 fuel tanks, and a little bit of juice to the amp meter. All right, as you can see, I got the blue wire coming over here, connected to my 4.8 volt excitation bus over there. Next, I think I'm gonna hook up this this violet line right there, which is going to that little guy there. If you come around the other side, it's gonna be the red light, like a warning light. The red comes out, just needs 12 volt power, and then this violet gets connected to the violet that's connected to this guy here. And here is the warning light. You can see pin number 7 on my label there, and kind of what I did with it, just 2 D sub pins and then some heat shrink around that. Okay, so I redid my master switch back there. I had these big 10 gauge wires going over to it, and I didn't like how much current that guy was responsible for. So I ended up putting a little relay in line with that whole system. So now I got a little 20 gauge wire going from this power bank here down under, back over to the switch, coming out the switch, going to that side over here, the small wire. The other wire is going to ground right there, and the big wire now, the 10 gauge, is coming off of here, going into the relay. Then once that makes contact, it goes out the relay, powering this fuse panel right here. I called GRT yesterday and found out that the audio out for the engine monitoring, that number 2 wire, it's not really needed. It produces a tone whenever, I guess, you have the red light that goes on. It produces a tone in your headset. And since I have an audio out on my EFIS screen, they said I don't need this one. So I went ahead and cut this wire as well. So I got 3 wires I cut down that I'll end up wrapping up. Next, I hooked up the oil pressure sender, which is wire number 18. It's the orange and black one. And I ran it down back up through the tunnel and onto that part right next to the master relay way over there. All right, well, I just ran my, well, of course, the oil pressure to the EIS, and now the coolant temperature to the EIS. And the last one I have here is the gearbox, and I won't do that until a little bit later because that's part of my auxiliary input. All right, showing what I have connected. Almost all my EIS wires are connected, or the engine information system wires are connected now. Going in here, I have the from the EIS on and off switch going over to the power. That powers the EIS along with another wire jointly connected to that one terminal, and that's going to my little red warning light up there. Next will be the EIS in for information going in when it comes to updates and stuff. Next one will be the EIS out, and that's to give all the information to my EFIS screen, or a main display. The next is the EIS fuel flow. There's a red and white wire that those connect to, and over here is the EIS outside air temperature one. And that concludes all my EIS wiring, other than I did do my auxiliaries 1 through 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in order. The only thing I need to do is connect my wires to each associated input onto here, and then go ahead and do my 4.8 volt resistor going into each one of these on top of the wires over here. So I still need to do that, and in fact I'll probably do that next. But now I came up with 1, 2, 3, 4 extra wires I'm not using here. Just so I have it, I'm gonna wrap them up and tie them down to this little guy here. Also, I'm not using this other yellow wire, but I'm not cutting it. It's the secondary tachometer wire. In case the other one goes south on me, at least I'll have this backup one. So I'm going to coil this one up, tie it up around with all of these guys. And the ones I'm not using are one of the fuel flow ones. There's a secondary fuel flow. If you have 2 fuel flow devices, I only have 1, so I don't need to use that. The other is audio out. I'm not going to use it on the EIS. It's just a tone that I don't need, because this other one will give me some more verbal type cues of any warnings. And the other one's like an oil temperature that we don't use on the Viking engine. And I'm trying to recall what the other one is. Oil temperature and carb temperature is the other one. Carburetor temperature is one that we don't use. Update on my wiring for my own records here. Auxiliary 1. Where is it? Auxiliary 1 is connected to the header tank. Coming out of there is a 4.8 volt excitation wire with a 470 ohm resistor. Coming out there, I went ahead and tied these together and just used 1 crimp on that. And this other one, auxiliary 5, is for the right tank. That's a 20 gauge wire for my right tank. Will be going to my right tank. And I use 2 separate connections on that. This is a 4.8 volt wire with again a 470 milliamp, I think it's milliamp, resistor in line with that. And next on auxiliary 6, I'll go ahead and put my left fuel tank wiring. And what I end up doing is running it's a green wire, just running it underneath the seats and up that channel there. And I have it you can kind of see it coming out the top there. All right, another day out here. I was hoping to get more done, but I didn't. I hooked up on auxiliary 2 the fuel pressure sender along with a 301 ohm resistor per GRT. They actually sent me that one. Back at it again. I think I hooked up my last wires to my excitation bus, which if you recall is that one right there with the brass on it. The last 2 wires, these are all my inputs to my EIS, my engine information, which is that guy back there or that guy back there. And this guy right here will talk to that one and display, this information will be displayed over here as well as down here. A lot of my auxiliaries, the last ones I've hooked up, gearbox temperature. That required a 301 resistor, ohm resistor. And where'd I end up going with that one at? Over there, and that's hooked up to that one right there as an ohm resistor. I can see that right there. Again, this is for my own reference here. That last one is a gearbox temperature ohm resistor, and that's hooked up to, what is the auxiliary number 4. And the other one I hooked up was coming from that little circle right there, which is my amp meter. That has 3 wires coming off of it. I have it wired back on the other side of the airplane, coming out right there. These 3 wires coming down here, along here. One of those 3 wires is a black one going to my ground bus right there. The other blue and the green I have dumped down underneath the panel, coming back up this other side here. The blue is coming around here, hooked up to this excitation. It does not require a resistor. It's the, which one is it in this second one here is the, for the amp meter. And then the other one, I have the green one I have connected right here, which is auxiliary number 3, is the Hall's amp meter. And that concludes all the wires going to my excitation block or bus over there. Oh, I think this is going to conclude my fuel flow, or my the EIS installation for the most part as far as the wiring goes. Everything I think I can connect is pretty much connected, other than the wire that takes this information and sends it back up to my main EIS screen. Takes this information, sends it back up here. There's an in and out so these guys can communicate, and those will go right here. I got them labeled in and out. So other than those being connected, everything else is connected. I just finished up the fuel flow. There's 3 wires. There's a white wire going to the EIS, or the EIS system, going out here. And then there's a red wire going to that one over here. And then there's a green ground for the fuel flow going right over there to my ground busing. And again, that'll probably conclude the wiring to my EIS system.